Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with the finale of Amphibia. Not just season 3, but the series as a whole. And I'm already getting emotional because this is the last time I can state it, right? This is the last time I can say this. At least in terms of reactions. Um, it's wild. It's wild how far we've come with this series. From dropping this after, what was it, 2 episodes? Because I wasn't as invested in it right away, plus a message that in episode 2 that I wasn't really too fond of. To being made to pick it back up thanks to a donation reward, and now finishing it out. It's insane to see how different this show is from the beginning. And a lot of shows have been like that. A lot of reaction series have been like that, to where the show has changed notably from the beginning to the end. And I think that's just pretty common. A lot of modern cartoons start off a lot more fun and just frivolous is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Just a lot less serious, and the tones shift during it, but in a way that feels more natural, in a way that feels like, okay, we've earned this, we've reached this point naturally. We've reached it as if it were part of this natural progression of the show. It doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like they just threw in dark storylines and ideas just to have them. It feels real. And on top of that, this show also brought in a lot of great characters that helped push that. Because, let's be honest, the characters at the start do not carry this show. There are a lot of series where, oh yeah, the stories, the writing may not be the best at the beginning, but the characters carry it through. Owl House is an amazing example of that. Where it's like, the beginning episodes are really not that great. I've rewatched them a lot by this point, and they're really not that great. They're not, like, terrible, but there's definitely a lot of work that they needed to do to figure out where they were going with this. And they did. They very much did. But it was clear at the beginning that they were still finding their feel for things. But luckily it had its great characters that allowed it to shine despite that. And yes, I know I dropped Owl House 2, but that was because I was annoyed at one singular thing. It had nothing to do with the characters or even most of the writing. It was just about Luce's mom not finding out. That was just an annoyance. And it still is a little annoying, but there's at least a reason in canon why she didn't. So, I can dig that. Plus, it also connects with one of my favorite characters in the series, V, so that also helps. But with this series, the characters were introduced too early on. Like, they're not the best characters in this show by any means. Like, even with the developments they get and everything, like, they're just not. Like, Polly is the best of them, but even she can't carry a show like this on her own. But Hop Pop, Sprig, Anne, it's like, they're fine. They're good characters. And Anne definitely got better as the seasons progressed. But without question, it's like they're not enough. And they didn't carry those early episodes to make them better. It took a bit for it to really progress in season 1. And once it did, once it started getting to the really good stuff, it really did. Sasha's introduction really helped with that. Grime as well. And so many other just aspects that were brought into things. The darker episodes started to really make it work a lot better. And then season 2 came. Season 2 changed the game altogether by leaving the valley. It introduced a lot more creativity, a lot more depth, and once Marcy came in, it just blew up. Like, once that episode hit, once episode 6 of season 2 hit, and Marcy was introduced, it changed the game. It completely changed the game. The entire series went from something that was fun and had some good moments and episodes and stuff to something that was great in the blink of an eye. And obviously Keith David as Andreas, his introduction was great as well. Newtopia in general, the stories started getting better. The humor started getting better. The depths, the world building, everything started getting better. And this continued into season 3 as it started getting a lot more serious and a lot more intense. The storyline started becoming a lot bigger. Character arcs started becoming a lot more fleshed out. And then we had the end of season 2. The shocking finale that changed everything. Because it went from great to undeniable. Once again, in the blink of an eye. It changed, again, so drastically. And completely upended the status quo. A character had seemingly died, or at least gotten so excessively injured that it was shocking that a Disney cartoon would do something like this. The depths of that finale, the intensity, the scariness of it, and using her powers for the first time. Everything felt earned, but also so shocking that it was insane. And then season 3 hit. We were in the human world. Anne got to see her parents again after 6 months. But the planters were in a world not their own. We knew we had to get back. But the ride was fun. The first half of this season, we got to meet new human characters. We got to see a flip side of what the series had been up till now. Instead of Anne having to navigate a new world, the planters were. We got amazing representation for Thai Americans, for queer people, just all kinds of amazing representation shown there. But we had to go back. And so we come to the second half of the season, the return to Amphibia and the gathering of the army, the gathering of the rebels for the final battle. Season 2B's prep work was built on the backs of seasons 1 and 2. Not only just collecting characters and references from the previous seasons, but everything that those seasons had built up all came to head in these final episodes. And I don't know how this finale is going to go, but All In, last episode, felt like the culmination of everything. We had so many storylines, so many plot points, so many character arcs come to a head in that episode. Sasha's redemption arc came to a head as she saved Marcy from the core. Anne fought to save 2 worlds from Andreas, admitting that she didn't used to love herself. And that her growth that we've seen is because of the influences around her that have made her a better person. We saw Marcy come to terms with her mistakes, apologize for them, and strive to be better. We saw Andreas deal with the demons of his past, and with one last letter from a long-lost love, he finally does the right thing. We saw so many things that were set up come to fruition. But it isn't over. Because although they seem to have won, the core did escape. And the prophecy is still not stopped. They return to Amphibia only to find the moon falling. The dawn of the final day is here. Someone commented that, and it's like, fuck, that's good. It's really good. Like, as a Majora's Mask fan, as a Legend of Zelda fan in general, that's really good. But it's also true in this case. It's practically dawn in real life right now. The final day of Amphibia reactions. And we're here to close this out. A series that I wrote off. That I wrote off as not being as good as Owl House. That I dropped. Because I felt like it was going in the wrong direction. We're now 3 seasons in at the finale. And I'm crying. Because I don't want it to end. But I also know that so many people say this ending is as satisfying as you can get. There are 2 things I know that happened in this finale. As I said before in the previous videos, I know that something happens involving the girls. I don't know the context behind it. I just have seen a couple screenshots that show a very specific thing happening with them. As always, I'll let you know when it happens. And I know something that is most likely at the very, very end of the episode. Again, I'll let you know when that happens. But almost everything about this finale has been unspoiled for me. And I'm so happy about that. Because there's so much about other shows that have been spoiled, big moments and whatnot. To have the vast majority of this finale unspoiled is a breath of fresh air. And makes it more meaningful, makes it more impactful. So, here we are. The culmination of 3 seasons of build-up. How is this going to end? I don't know. But you bet your ass we're about to find out. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the final episode of Amphibia. So, that all being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. I said I was going to look something up, and I didn't. I don't have the time. You guys can tell me in the comments or whatnot if I was right about the entire domino thing or not, or if I was just somehow making that up in my head. People, from what I had seen and everything, have called this finale pretty perfect and satisfying. And yeah, I would mostly agree to that. My one hang up, and I'm going to get this right out of the way, is I feel this was a little rushed. Just a little bit. Between the space battle with the core, all of the stuff with God, and the closing of everything, it felt like a little rushed, admittedly. And I feel like this could have also been double length, and it would have, or at least a little bit longer, to give it a little more time. Because it felt like this needed a little more time to breathe, a little more time to like flesh out each aspect of this. Even the 10 years later scene at the end could have just used a little more, you know? Just a little more to really flesh out where their lives were at this point. Both in terms of those in Amphibia and our girls in the human world. Like, there's also just certain things that we honestly didn't catch up with. Percy and Braddock, blatantly mentioned by Sasha, they were never seen again after they left Anne and Grime. With the Barrel's Warhammer incident and all. That was never resolved. And I feel like it could have been. And maybe even should have been. It feels weird that it was just left unresolved. Like, they couldn't find them at all during the time when they were recruiting and everything. I mean, I get the idea of, like, not everything being resolved. I understand, like, how that in and of itself can have meaning. But I feel like there should have been some resolution there. From a storytelling perspective. But yeah, obviously the space battle was pretty cool. Obviously, the fact that Anne did actually die, was cloned by God, and the clone is the survivor we now know, is pretty fucking insane. And the 10 years later is very sweet. But again, it feels like because of this being a little rushed, it could have been given a little more time to breathe. It felt like it's just like, oh, we just have to show this at the end. Let's not take any time for it. Let's just rush through it. Because they didn't have time to do anything more. I really wish they did. And that might be on Disney more than them, more on Matt Braley and the team. But I really wish there was more time to flesh a lot of that out a little better. Because I don't think we even know what Marcy does nowadays. I mean, it mentioned Sasha has the psych degree. It mentioned Anne is a herpetologist. What does Marcy do? I don't think it mentioned that, unless I missed it somehow. I mean, I could think of multiple things that she might be doing, but Maybe I just missed it. It's possible. I'll obviously be watching this again with some different reactors and everything. Um, and eventually on my own and with my sister as well. Once we get to that point, we're still on season 2. But yeah, either way, it was still very satisfying, even despite the feeling that it was rushed in terms of its pacing. The actual events and everything that happened was satisfying. And choosing to sacrifice herself to save everyone was a genuinely perfect closure to her character arc. It made perfect sense. She goes from someone who at the beginning of the series was selfish, who was emotionally and mentally immature, and who believed that friendship was manipulative because of her friendships, to someone who is willing to sacrifice herself, to die, to save multiple worlds, and especially one that isn't even her own, but one that accepted her and welcomed her as if it were. Sasha and Marcy already had the conclusion to their character arcs last episode. And as I said in the pre-thoughts, perfect conclusions for them. And obviously, the most emotional parts of this were the goodbyes. But we also see that 10 years later, they still honor her. They still remember her. They still love her. Her memory is still strong in their hearts. And that's never going to change. Even as they do. And so, I do think it was a satisfying conclusion. Emotional, exciting, shocking, and just kind of fun. But if I'm being at all honest, last episode was much better. Last episode was so drastically better. Like, if I were to give last episode a 10 out of 10, this would only be a 7 in comparison. I don't even know if this episode will be in my top 10 of the season. I'm gonna have to think about that. Obviously, I'll make a list. I don't know if this will be in it. I don't know if it'll make the cut. Last episode, I can guarantee will be. I'm not 100% on its placement yet, but it will be in the top 10. This one, I'm not sure. It might be. I just have to really think things over and go through the episodes again to figure it out. But it's like if you kind of combine last episode and this episode into one whole finale, it still works just as well. It still like feels completely right. And in the end, it was still a great way to end off the series. It was wonderful. And the series was wonderful. I already talked about it enough in the pre-thoughts. I'm not going to talk about it again here, or not much here, but yeah, it's amazing that my journey with this show, in a way, kind of mirrored the journeys of our Calamity trio. That their journeys and changes throughout this series were similar to my own changes on the thoughts and opinions of the series as I watched. I grew from someone who didn't like it, who was not impressed by it, to someone who's crying watching the finale, who's going to be sad to see all these characters go and to not be watching them again. I've grown to love them and to love this series. It's still not on the level of stuff like Owl House. I still stand firmly by that. This is not as good as Owl House. I am not like faltered on that. But it's very, very good. And it deserves the praise, it deserves the fans and the attention and the love that it's received. And I just hope that we continue to get more shows like this in the future. I just hope that we continue to get more creators doing stuff like this. Taking risks and making great stories that evolve as the series continues. Stuff like this in the Owl House are fantastic. Hell, I hope that the Ghost and Molly McGee goes down this path. I really do. Even if it's a very different feeling series based on the first season, I really would love Ghost and Molly McGee to evolve and grow and become so much better as it continues on. And I thought season 1 was great. But I don't really have much of any more time to discuss this because I am recording this right before doing the 6-hour holiday mega stream, so I don't really have much more time to talk about this, but I don't really have much else to say. Like, some people could probably talk for hours about this finale, about the intricacies of everything, about like every shot and what it means. But for me, it's just like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It wasn't the best episode of this series by any means, but it ended everything off in a very satisfying, conclusory way. It may have felt a little rushed, but it was still one hell of an ending. An emotional ending, a powerful ending, and one that's just really, really good. So, thank you, Sweet Venom, for having me continue this series after I initially dropped it. Thank you to Matt Braley and the team for making it. And thank you to all the rest of you who tune in to watch and comment and just enjoy what I've got to say while checking out this silly little frog show that became something so much more. For now, and at least for the last time on Amphibia, this is it. But that raises the question of what's next. And if you tuned into the live stream, the 6-hour live stream, then you'll have already seen what is next. But for those who didn't and haven't heard yet, the next series that will be taking over this, since this is a donation reward slot, is something new. Instead of getting back to some other things right now, we're going to start something brand new, and that is Symphogear. Symphogear is a donation reward for Calypso, and I know pretty much nothing about it except that Calypso has let slip that it is music-based in some way. I don't know in what way. I've seen what one of the characters looks like just because I already made an update to the banner. I just have to put that up after this reaction is posted. But yeah, so Symphogear is going to be replacing this. I don't know what it's about really, except, again, music is somehow involved. So I don't know what I'm going to think about it, but we'll see. We'll check it out and hopefully enjoy it. Um, I don't know what to expect, but we'll find out. So, in the meantime, once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have any comments, any questions, if you especially have any questions about anything I might not have mentioned, or if you want to point anything out that I might have missed, please feel free. The comments are always open for that. I'm always good for that kind of commentary on my reaction. But all that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.